man, I changed it to Twitter Questions Saturday on the YouTube. I don't know if it's still able to do that on the other one or not. It's not a big deal.
What does it say? I don't care.
Friday.
Alright.
What do you do when you cross a know-it-all newspaper columnist with an awkward, unsophisticated everyday?
Yeah. Well, I'm just not sure about that right now.
Welcome to Couch and the Room.
Welcome to Couch and the Roof, a Saturday night show presented by our friends at Firekeepers Casino and the Firekeepers iCasino and Sportsbook app. Download the app today. Bet the NFL playoff games. Bet MSU basketball against Rutgers. Bet the Lions on Sunday night. Or just head down to Firekeepers Casino on I-94 near Battle Creek for the great Vegas experience right here in Michigan. Jason, how you doing, brother?
I can't play anything. Oh. Dude, it's cause to the weather people around here. It's really not that bad out, right? Are we getting more? Or why are we scaring everyone into going to the grocery store like everything's going to end, like the world's going to end? And I'm like, there's no way we're going to do a show. Like last night, I'm like, there's no way, right? And then it clears up. We're doing it.
It's the first snow of the year. If this had hit...
They do this at everyone, though.
I know, usually we get something in December. By January, we're a little more seasoned. Whether people get excited. I mean, we can talk to Chris Eastlick about this. I know they get... Yeah,
but Eastlick is like, not because he listens to the show, but he's like level-headed. He doesn't like scare tactics. He gives you info you need. You know, it's just like, these other ones are just like Provenzanos telling me I'm going to die.
I don't know.
Jesus. Well, to me, it felt that way.
Okay, yeah. Well, look, all the kids had Friday off school. It didn't snow till like 3 p.m.
And then our snowblower, because we tried going electric with the snowblower, the battery didn't have enough juice in it to even power up. So T and I are old school in it, shoveling out there. I feel like ass right now. I don't know what I did, but I'm just really nervous because tomorrow's like the biggest night of my life, and I want to make sure that I'm healthy for it. But we're gonna do a show. Fuck it.
Yeah, you can't risk tomorrow night. I mean, people can. You don't have to have your walk show. First of all, you're in Ovid. Who's walking by your house in Ovid? Like, do you need to shovel your walk in Ovid?
Zero.
Right. There shouldn't be any statues.
Listen, I'm with you, but Therese goes out there and she wants to shovel, and I feel bad. I feel if the neighbors across the street are looking out and seeing my wife shoveling by herself, you know?
You got to get more of how I feel in you, because you know we've seen many pictures of my wife mowing the lawn and snow blowing and things like that when I'm out of town. It just
and it's wild to see because it doesn't really fit your MO. You usually kiss your wife's ass. I mean, to have her do that, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, she's out of town this weekend, so
nice.
A couple things about that. One, I had to do the snow blowing and shoveling myself. Two, and we're going to get into the Groovy Donut Twitter questions. She's not around to police my donut consumption. And Groovy Donuts right now, Sunday, from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m., has the peanut butter explosion. Last chance to get this donut. The box and the picture, the donut and the picture in the box that they have.
Does it have a picture of Tony Dombrowski on there?
No, but it's exciting. And so I will be at Groovy Donuts on Sunday morning. If you want to get yourself fueled up for the Lions game, or just have a box of donuts for however the game goes, to celebrate or commiserate at your side, go to groovydonuts.com, place an order. Better yet, just show up 7 a.m., 1 p.m. Sunday morning and get yourself ready to go. So I'm glad you were willing to do this show. We wanted to do a Friday show.
Billy.
Well,
Yes.
we were supposed to do a Friday show. That was not Jason's fault. We were supposed to do a Friday show, Twitter question show, at the usual time we do it. And a little bit of blame falls on me for not checking out the equipment. Some blame falls on Jack Ebling. I hope you enjoyed his Friday show. He's got like 2 of the routers. We have this remote equipment. So I'm going down to Illinois Thursday. I need the remote. I have remote equipment at home, so we can do a show with me on the road. I was going to wake up, I'm up late, writing a column, wake up, do the show from my hotel, and then come back. And before I left, I realized that the equipment I had was missing the router because it had been borrowed for somebody else, and Evelyn had 2 of them somehow at his house. And Evelyn has weird hours, and I don't think he was awake yet at 2 p.m. when we were frantically trying to get a hold of him. So that's how.
Does he know how to use them? That's the interesting question.
He does the show from home, so one
I
of them is always
understand,
working.
but I figured like someone has to go over there, like Jeff or something, like, and set it up for him.
It's a good question.
You know,
I got over it eventually, and we're here on a Saturday night, and
yeah, let's do it.
And
It.
it should be a good show. Before we dig into these Groovy Donuts Twitter questions, anything you are betting this weekend? What we're betting, of course, presented by the Firekeepers Eye Casino and Sports.
Take a wild guess, but there's going to be many bets on the Lions-Rams game tomorrow night. So definitely, I haven't put my parlay, my SGPs they call them, together yet, Graham. So that's definitely you got to bet on that game.
Going to be trying to make up all the money I lost on the Browns-Texans under, which in the Browns teaser was a rough start to the NFL playoffs for me. So I did do okay in the Premier League this morning.
Joe Flacco went full Nathan Peterman, man, back to back. I'm listening to the radio on the way here. Unbelievable.
As much, I know a lot of people like the Rams. I don't love the Lions in this game in terms of a betting perspective, but we waited 30 years for a home playoff game. The last thing I'm going to do is bet against the Lions. You've talked about this. You know what misery that would be?
Terrible.
Yeah. I'm just going to leave it alone.
I mean, unless there is one scenario where you can put some money on it. So if they do lose, then you have at least some money, I guess, to make you feel better. I don't do that anymore. No, I can't do that.
Because I find myself being swayed too much by the bet during the game, and then I find myself actually rooting for the other team a little bit, and it's not healthy.
If you want to take the gambling take of it, yes, Rams plus 3.5 with Stafford and those two wideouts and the running game. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know how you don't take the 3 and a hook if you have nothing involved with this game whatsoever, and you were just kind of handicapping it and which side do you take. But
I also like Everton Sunday morning a little bit against at home against Aston Villa. Don't love it, but it's not a huge Premier League slate this week. So that is what we're betting. Presented by Firekeepers Eye Casino and Sportsbook app. I was going to talk a little bit about MSU basketball from the game on Thursday night, but we're going to do that a lot here through the Groovy Donuts Twitter questions. I mean, that's the conversation with a lot of Lions and a lot of Michigan State basketball. So let's. No,
Tom, we're not giving up on the team, by the way. I know he likes to say that. Eric Schultz up first. There are 14 Izzo teams that have either won the Big Ten or made at least an Elite 8. 12 of them were top 10 nationally in rebounding. All were top 25. Currently, they're 93rd. What are the odds MSU, 1, fixes this, and 2, fixes it by being different than every other good team Izzo's had?
The odds aren't great of the first one because you sort of are who you are. They did out-rebound Illinois, which I thought was a good sign. It's not a great rebounding team. And I think they have potential to beat you in other ways. But you're right. I mean, defense, rebounding, running. That's who they've been. And this team at its best has been defense and running. The rebounding component has not been something they've been elite at. We'll see if they can overcome it. But I don't think they change who they are. It's not. It's certainly not going to happen in this matchup against Rutgers on Sunday. This is a tough one for Mady Sissoko. He plays against a guy at Rutgers who's basically a version of him that's 2.0, and that's the worst type of thing to face, a better version of yourself. We've seen it before, and it's not a Mady Sissoko game. And I'm not going to tell Tom Izzo to coach his team, but if I were coaching this game, knowing what I know, Mady Sissoko would play only about 12 to 14 minutes. I let the other guys who are more of a contrast play the game.
Next one from Eric. What's MSU's record if they went and got that Mass kid from Bradley in the offseason instead of letting him become a Husker?
It's better than it is. The thing that
he can shoot. Can that kid shoot?
Well, what he can really do is dish. He can pass, and he had what? I forget what he had. He had
dish.
A ton of assists against Michigan State.
Dropping dimes.
I mean, he controlled that game. You can play through him, which is a big thing. I'm going to give Izzo this pass until we see Jackson Kohler for about 3 weeks. Because if Jackson Kohler is a similar version of that, and I don't know that he is. I don't know that. I mean, Mast, I think, has been better. He was more seasoned. He was more proven than Kohler. But I do think that what they thought they had in Jackson Kohler, Carson Cooper coming off last year, and then Sissoko sort of being what he is, I think they thought they were okay at the center position, unlike a year ago when they clearly weren't. entirely. And so let's see what Kohler is, and because I do think he will change who they are offensively a little bit. But
How long do we have to wait? 3 weeks?
well, you
On Kohler?
gotta let the guy actually get into a rhythm and start playing a little bit. I would give
All
it
right.
2 weeks. You got to give him 4 games of being back from being off for 2.5 months before
Sure.
you really start to judge that. In the future, though, and we've seen Izzo do it with Tyson Walker at point guard, so it's not like he's not afraid to do it. You know, this is Michigan State has huge advantages in terms of brand. That's the one thing Izzo has. Izzo is freaking Tom Izzo. How many programs have that sort of cachet, that sort of legend in the lead seat? And when you are recruiting transfers from mid-majors and top guys who are grad transfers at that level, you're going to be able to get them at Michigan State. You have the NIL money. In basketball, that's not an issue. And you've got the brand, you've got the coach. Like, when you've got a hole, you got to go fix it. We'll see if they actually have a hole and to what degree. But we all know at this point Soko is what he is, and on his own, he's not enough. The question is whether the other two supplementing him can get them there.
Matt Venny next. Does Izzo retire during the season or wait until the season is officially over in March? Does Alan Haller have the testicular fortitude to have that conversation with Izzo? He's coaching well, but it doesn't seem to be enough, and that's usually a sign to step away. No, Haller doesn't have the balls. And I don't blame him. I wouldn't either.
I think Haller has. I do actually think Haller has the balls for a uncomfortable conversation with Izzo when it's time. I just don't think that evidence is really there. This is very different than where D'Antonio was. It's very different in terms of the results to this point still, and we'll see where this season winds up. It's different in terms of the energy and steam and recruiting that Izzo's been doing. There aren't that many similarities other than Izzo's getting old and he is probably past his prime. But I would find it hard to believe that there is the odds that you're going to find the right fit after Izzo and have that person be better than you're going to get the next, say, 3 years out of Izzo, I find unlikely.
But is Izzo having fun?
I think he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then he's not going anywhere then. Jeffrey Daly next. Seriously, how did Matty Sissoko have those 2 games against Gonzaga and Kentucky last season?
Part of it is catching people off guard. When there's no scouting report on you and you're not a threat, you can come in and do everything. And they realize that, how to defend him on pick and rolls, the one thing he could really do offensively, and that he was somebody you had to get a body on. And all of a sudden there was a scouting report. And Kentucky was sort of a lazy team that it was 2 good matchups too. The 2 good matchups with no scouting report, and then we saw the best of Soko for a couple games.
New year, new volleyball dad next. Did you really say MSU could be a 6th seed in the tournament? I'll buy you a half dozen Groovy Donuts if they're higher than a 10 seed.
Deal, but if they are a 6 seed, you owe me dinner at Wormwood's in Soko. New year, new volleyball dad. He's a Maine guy.
It's like an inside thing with you two?
Well,
or?
he's in Maine. He knows the area. So, dinner at Wormwood's or maybe somewhere in Portland, whatever it is, and we'll make that. Because here's the thing: Michigan State. If you look at Michigan State's schedule, there's a real chance this team, I still think, finishes 14-6 in the Big Ten. Like when you start to look at who's next, and look at Ken Pom, where the teams they played are rated, where the teams are about to play are rated. Some home games. I mean, the Wisconsin game is a game that I still think would be 50-50 based on the matchup. Malik Hall, remember, was sick in that game at Breslin Center. They weren't playing as well. Wisconsin's really good, but that's a place Michigan State's had success. I think that's a 50-50 game. And other than that game, tell me where their next defeat is. Doesn't mean they won't slip up. But I think a 6 seed is, look at their net ranking. Right now, they're 25th. Look at Ken Pom, 17. They're like almost in the top 10 in Vartorvik. I mean, by the metrics, they're in a top 6 seed right now. And I know you got to win some games, but they're going to win some games because the schedule softens at this point. They may win some games and their ranking may fall. They went up points in the net ranking by losing at Illinois. So I'll take your bet. If they finish the 6 seed, I want your half dozen Groovy Donuts because I'll gladly eat them. And if it's a 10 seed or lower, then I'll wait a second. I don't know how that bet works. Somehow I'm getting dinner at Worldman's.
New year, new volleyball. Dad, will you remind me in July to discuss how much of the Camou Promise doesn't get used and why?
Yes, we will do that topic. June or July.
2 shows.
Yep.
I won't be here, but Graham will. Steve Beckman, what's Jason bringing with him to Ford Field for the Lions home playoff game Sunday night? I mean, weed?
Camping gear?
Weed? Yeah, like, what do you mean? Like, I don't know. Warm clothes and some weed. I'm pretty sure that's pretty much all I'm going to bring to the game.
Maybe a Muscat flannel.
I mean, yeah, because I do have that lion skull that I got when we got married in Mexico, and it was cracked right down the middle. And I told the lady in there, I said, "You're not going to find another Lions fan that's going to buy a broken skull. So just let me have it for 10 pesos." Jesus Christ! I can't bring that thing though. It's going to get broken.
I gotta say, by the way, today, one of the other things Muscat flannels are great for is shoveling. Like I'm as comfortable as me right now. It's like the first day it's not excruciatingly hot in the studio, and but when you're out there, you can wear kind of a light coat, and just how you get really sweaty sometimes with a big heavy coat when you're shoveling.
Yeah.
Nah, light coat and Muscat flannels is as comfortable as you'll ever be.
I wore it here tonight because I didn't want to put on a jacket inside the car. It's nice and perfect.
Fantastic. Go to muscats.com, of course.
Steve Beckman, how do you think this weather will affect the attendance at Ford Field Sunday? Will there be more pre-game accidents at the local highways and flags in that game? Is it supposed to be bad tomorrow too?
I don't think so. And people are...
It's not going to affect the attendance. We're getting there somehow.
This is a big deal game, right? And I am not somebody who... Like, my mother always calls about the weather, and she's like, careful coming back. And look, it took me...
People that love you do that.
It's nice, but I choose to live here. And this is something I tell my wife all my time, because one of my big pet peeves is when the weather prevents you from doing something you want to do. I choose to live in Michigan in January and February. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to get there. You got to leave a little earlier sometimes. Sometimes you got to go a little slower. But almost never am I going to let the weather stop me from a planned activity.
Even if they tell you to stay off the roads?
Well, it can get...
Unless you need it, unless there's an emergency.
Yeah.
There's Graham still going to the Kroger to get some bread or some shit.
Well, if they cancel the event I'm going to because nobody else is going, I won't go. But that stuff drives me nuts. But this is a playoff game. I was actually surprised tonight. You know what I was also surprised by today? Speaking of weather, that the Bills Steelers game was postponed.
Yeah. But not Kansas City, Miami tonight. It's supposed to be minus 32 or something.
10 years from now, that won't be postponed. Because what's a lot of bets, and not everywhere, but a lot of bets were canceled because it's part of the deal with, I know like DraftKings in some places still kept your bets, but if the game moves days, your bet is usually null and void. Well, that's not a big deal, you just redo the bet. But if you got a certain line earlier in the week, or you have a teaser that's canceled, there are lots of things you can't get back. 10 years from now, there's no way, like by then gambling will run too much in this world, and they'll just say play the game without fans. But we're not negating all these bets on a game.
Can't they just play this game in Vegas, the Chiefs-Miami game? I mean, come on. Do we really have to watch these guys like play in that kind of like the snow with Josh Allen? Like that's going to be kind of fun, right? But this cold, it's just I don't know. This game's going to be brutal. Steve Beckman, how many questions do you actually find by searching for the hashtag Couch in the Rube, and why are people using that to ask you a question instead of replying to tweets like this one?
I just want to give people another way. I don't know.
I have no idea, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, when you get some, most people reply. But I always check it, just in case, because we put it out there. So, and sometimes people, and to be honest, the reason I like it now is because in Elon's version of Twitter, there's shit that I somehow miss sometimes. Like there's stuff.
Dude, I miss your tweets too. Yeah. I don't like this algorithm.
There's weird stuff. Even things that are replies, like you don't. I'm like, how did I miss that?
Right.
I almost never miss anything with the hashtag, so that's why I like the hashtag too.
Last one from Steve. Have you ever tried the Early Bird Blend from Stranger Matter Coffee in Lansing or the MSU Union? If I sent you a bag of it, would you give it away to a listener in a contest, or would that be too much work for you? Yeah, don't do that, Steve.
Yeah, don't do that.
Well, now it'll just
a couple of reasons. One, that's a competitor with a place that has great coffee and Groovy Donuts, and also has amazing donuts. And coffee and donuts is the best combination in the world. So unless Strange Matter were going to be a really good partner with Groovy Donuts, I don't know that they would do that. Then no thank you, but thank you.
T-Bone's dad next. What emotion would ultimately be stronger for Lions fans? Elation if we beat Stafford and the Rams, or gut-wrenching agony if we lose? Both possibilities tomorrow, it sounds like. I don't know.
I think the elation is the stronger.
If we beat the Rams, like what is... I don't understand the question.
In other words, if they beat the Rams in Stafford, is the emotion of being happy for that greater than the agony of being sad if they lose? What's the greater emotion, win or lose tomorrow?
I might be high, but I don't understand this question. Of course I want the Lions to win. What do you mean? I don't want to be in agony? Is that the question?
Right, but which would be worse? Which would be a stronger emotion, the agony or the thrill?
Either way it happens. I'm going to be strong. I'm just talking about myself personally. If we lose in a gut-wrenching fashion, I mean, if we get our ass kicked, which I don't see like the Browns did today, then it's not really as gut-wrenching because you knew from the get-go you're not winning that game. But if Stafford throws a touchdown to beat us, some shit like that, but... Man, I want to win. I want to be in that stadium for when we win the playoff game. So, David Jackson. Would Jonathan Smith have been the new Washington coach instead of being at MSU if timing had been a little different? And from the Danimal. Can't wait for the next Smith presser where Solari inevitably asks if Smith regrets not waiting for the Washington job to open up.
I don't know that he will ask that, but I will prod him to just because I want to see the reaction.
Chris, you should ask this question.
Definitely, because we all were.
How crazy was that though? Saban retires, DeBoer.
Yeah,
they had to snag him right away. I haven't heard terms yet of his contract.
Here's why it made sense for DeBoer. First of all, he's a coach who will win anywhere because he's coached at the NCAA in South Dakota. Like, he has gone up the ladder truly, right?
Yeah.
But I also think, when you look at this year as a snapshot of college, there was no promise that Washington was going to be great post Michael Penix, post 9 six-year seniors on that roster. Like, it was going to take a minute. And I think they'd be really good, but I think this was a year that would be tough to duplicate. And now you go to Bama and you get a big payday and you're at the pinnacle of the career. Do I think Jonathan Smith would have been the Washington coach? I don't know. I mean, obviously West Coast, he might have been a candidate, and that's that's more in his wheelhouse out there. And now that Oregon State's no longer in the same league, maybe it would have made sense. You don't see coaches jumping from Big Ten school to Big Ten school, and I'm not sure how that would have been looked at out there. But yeah, I mean, sure, it absolutely could have been the case if the timing would have been different. That's the way life is in a lot of things.
And back to DeBoer, I mean, talk about great timing, though. Saban retires in the last 14 playoff. You're going to 12 teams, so there's a little less pressure for DeBoer. You can lose 1 or 2 games, still make the playoff, right?
Yeah, I mean, the playoff to me is going to be so much more the line of judgment for coaches than it was before. Because if you weren't one of the elite teams before, the playoff was hard to get into, top 4 teams. You could go forever not quite getting there and people would be okay with you. You'd be winning enough. James Franklin, winning enough to keep the job even when people get frustrated. And to be fair, I mean, James Franklin, the record he's put up will be in the, if you took James Franklin's last 7 years at Penn State, I think they're in the playoff 3-4 times, even if in a 12-team playoff. But you're going to have to get there now, not just Alabama, places like Michigan State. That's going to be the line. If you don't get your school into the playoff, you're only you have to build a program that can do that, otherwise you'll be fighting.
Next one from David. Will MSU finally bring in a legitimate upper-tier center in the transfer portal for next basketball season? Will Izzo finally admit that there's a need?
Well, I think we've got 2 months to find out if there's a need. Because you have to see what Cooper and Kohler are the rest of this year. You have to have a sense of because part of trying to recruit that guy is that person thinking there's an opening. If Jackson Kohler comes in and is an effective role player in that position and Cooper continues to develop, and it's not, I don't know that it's going to be clear. But certainly, it's got to be something that I think Izzo, if this team, you can't have teams that don't get it done because you didn't address one position. And I don't think Izzo's afraid of that. I think he's just misjudged the center position, and he got a little bit stubborn with the idea of doubling down on his guys a year ago. I think they thought they'd be okay at center this year. And I think they thought they'd have a healthy Jackson Kohler. They thought between the three of them, they'd be good. And so I don't think it was an issue this year. When I go back to that Tyson Walker decision, they had A.J. Hogarth, they didn't trust him. They didn't trust him. They thought they had an issue with the point guard position. And so they went out and got Tyson Walker to play the point guard. Now that's not, he's played more off the ball. But that was a move based on thinking you had a need at a critical position. So I don't think they're afraid to do that.
David, last one from him. How do you feel about your show's time killing the TV ratings for MSU hockey tonight? You're killing the program.
We started after we did. And
you can listen to it whenever, David, after the game.
But I also appreciate you thinking that we're taking a dent out of TV ratings. MSU. I'll also say this. MSU fans should not know the result or should not have seen the Browns-Texans game. Because if MSU is the hockey school that MSU fans say it is, then a Browns-Texans game should not supersede a hockey game on BTN, Michigan State, Penn State, because it won for basketball. Basketball is playing, everybody would be watching that. So I'm just putting that out there. Nobody should have seen the Browns-Texans game.
Witty username next. To make hot takes hot, contributors need to get their feet held to the fire. A hot take without repercussions is just babble. I propose Rube or a caller. A caller? Be the official hot take judge. If your take is stupid, you will be ridiculed.
People want this? I don't know. I mean, it would be a good way to live.
Maybe one show, people ridiculing other people's shit. I mean, it'd be funny. I don't know.
I think we would have to do it kindly, because I don't want people to be offended. And there's a way to do it with the proper tone. I just worry there are certain days.
How would you be offended? I mean, you can't go over the line. You can be funny about it.
Think about
the right way.
Yeah, we'd have to do it early enough in the show to. Because I feel like late in the show, when you start to get hot and you've been reading for a while, the approach may not be all that tactful. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, or a caller. We can get one of those.
Yeah,
have on.
Yeah. Okay.
David Zondi next. Over under on Kalen DeBoer in Bama. And would Muskox stand up to this wind and cold?
Absolutely. Muskox is built for this. This is Muskox's month. January. I mean, gosh, I'm just living.
I cherish mine.
Yeah. The over-under on Kalen DeBoer, over-under years of success, over-under success level. I mean, I don't know what the over-under is. In getting the job, I think that's going to happen, right? I mean, is that not? Is it
I think he's already had his presser and everything.
Yeah, he's done. In terms of success, I think he's a great coach, and I think he'll win everywhere. I just think he's a home run hire. And this goes back to when Michigan State had to open. I mean, you look at Kalen DeBoer's track, and Southern Illinois as an offensive coordinator, Eastern Michigan just a few years ago as an offensive coordinator. So people do such a poor job of identifying these guys. There are 20 Kalen DeBoers in college football right now. You got to find them. There are offensive coordinators all over the place, and that's a hard thing to do. But these search firms just suck at this stuff. And I understand you got to introduce it to alumni, but if you're at a place like Purdue, or you're at a place like Iowa State, or you're at a place that's got some financial limitations and brand limitations, you ought to be looking for these guys and finding these guys. You ought to have somebody's full-time job is to identify coaches that are under the radar.
But don't you want to see what kind of quarterback DeBoer gets in Bama? Because he owes Penix. He needs to break Penix off a couple mil because Penix got him that gig, right? I just want to see what kind of quarterback he gets in Bama before you can talk over/under on years.
You know who won't be the quarterback in Alabama under him? Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
That just won't work. That won't work in that system.
Kevin from Rochester Hills next. Did MSU basketball get overhyped prior to the season? They look average.
Well, I mean,
they got overhyped.
Yes and no. They've underperformed. I mean, they got overhyped a little bit because
they're the first team to start out in the top 5, and then they were out in like the first week and a half.
That's
hype though. That's preseason hype.
Yeah, right.
Everybody was excited after that ranking.
No doubt. But that's the AP poll. That's the poll.
Not everybody hates the AP poll.
That's the collection of Nimrods saying, blah, blah, blah. This is what we
don't step to Larry Lage, bro.
I'm sorry. I love Larry, but a lot of respect for the AP. It's their poll that sucks. No, here's the thing. They were a little overhyped, but it was natural. You have that many guys coming back, good recruiting class coming in, great recruiting class coming in. Even now, it was a great recruiting class. Now, I know Booker has been underwhelming significantly, and obviously the injury or the shooting with fears his leg. But when you have a team with that age and experience surge late in the year and get to the Sweet 16 and look how they did and bring it back, the hype was natural. Now, to the point that they look very average, here's where I would take a little bit of umbrage with that. In 6 of their last 7 games, they have not been average. They lost by 3 points on the road at a top 10 Camou team. That's not average. That's playing like a top 10 team. They may have missed a lot of shots. They may have made things they didn't do perfectly in terms of defending early on, and they played that game like a top 10 team. Now, you can argue whether Illinois right now is technically a top 10. They played at least like a top 15 team. To lose by 3 at Illinois on the road is not average. There's nothing average about that. You're about to see average. Average is Rutgers. Average is in the 50s and 70s and Ken Palm and all those teams. They are not an average team. And they haven't played, other than a poor performance against Northwestern, they have not played average in over a month.
Next one from Kevin. Is there anyone on MSU's team capable of taking over a game on a consistent basis? If so, they better start now.
Yeah, I mean, more than most teams, that's why they're not average. I mean, A.J. Hoggard, we've seen him do it at times. We've seen Tyson Walker do it a lot. Those are the 2 guys. They have 2 who can do it. And, you know, you certainly want a guy like Walker taking your biggest shots late. But, you know, Hoggard can, for a while, for stretches, just put you on the back and change things. And so those 2 guys, it's a backcourt that is excellent at the college level. And, yeah, they've got 2 guys that can do it. And, you know, let's see what the thing that's going to happen now that's going to be interesting is Michigan State's going to win a lot of games because of who they're playing and where they're playing these games. And some of it, I think, will be because they're playing well. And there aren't that many measuring sticks. But one of them is Wisconsin on the road. And let's see that game. They're going to win 3 games before then. They'll be 12-7 and 4-4 going into Wisconsin. And let's look then and then see where they are. Wisconsin's unbeaten in the Big Ten, so a really good team. They go there and win that game. I think people will sort of realize, okay, they're good.
Dat Dude next. Who needs to be taking the last shot in MSU basketball games, and why is it not Hoggard? Who is the most important player for MSU down the stretch?
Well, the last shot either needs to be Tyson Walker, and it wasn't a horrible shot, it wasn't a perfect shot. And Wright did a nice breakdown of the last shot by Tyson Walker and what he needed, maybe one more dribble in, he said, and, you know, a little more space, but it was not a bad shot. Tyson Walker, this guy can create space. Most teams don't have that. It's either him or it's the open shot, and you don't want it to be Hoggard from deep, but you don't mind him on the drive. You don't mind a kick to Akins for the last shot. But if you're looking at ISO ball, or you'd like to have, it's Tyson Walker, and Michigan State is still in a better spot in terms of having people feel good about taking that shot than most teams.
Dat Dude, Lions prediction, please. 34-28 Lions.
I like that.
Because the concern is, right, it's the defense. But if you look at the defense and how much they've given up in the games, Vikings 20, Cowboys 20, Vikings again 24, Broncos 17, right? Like, the defense is the epitome of the bend don't break. I know we hated it when Michigan State did it, but it really is, right? And I think if we can just get a 1 or 2 turnovers,
got to get after Stratford a little bit, yeah.
And that crowd's going to be crazy, though. There's going to be.
I think they'll take away the run. You know,
it's just those 2 wide receivers.
I want. You know, I give Jared Goff some grief about the contract stuff and concerns about that. And that's only just trying to be a realist about things. But other than wanting this game for Lions fans, I want this for Jared Goff, because you think about a guy who was just kind of, the things that have been said about him and his stint in LA, you're sort of discarded, like, we can do this as long as we don't have you. Goodbye.
But it worked, though. That's
the problem. It did. That's why you need to win this game. That's why, for Jared Goff's sake, to beat McVay, to beat the Rams, to beat Stafford, I think would just be incredibly meaningful for him, and I want him to have that in his career.
Us first, though, then Goff.
Yeah.
All right, some dude next. To be clear, the Lions are going to win this game. People are saying that losing to Stafford would be the worst thing ever for Lions fans. I'd personally suffer much more if we lost a playoff game to Green Bay. What are you guys at on this?
Yeah, I don't know that it matters.
Green Bay really, yeah, losing to either one would suck. I just think the storyline of Stafford, it's just kind of like, here we go. You know what I mean? Like when things happen to us in game and the refs are ass, and then our first home playoff game, motherfucking Stafford is coming back with the Rams. It's just a mind blower, right?
Yeah, no.
And if he wins a game at Ford Field, I don't know. It's just all of the variables in it is just ass. So I would take Green Bay if I had to answer the question.
It's how you lose any playoff game. I think would make.
They all suck, I'm sure. Yes.
Like if the way they lost to the Cowboys, a couple weeks ago, was how they lost the playoff game.
We're setting that place on fire if that shit happens.
It would not be
Sunday.
Good. It would not be good. Yeah, it would not be good for anybody.
Tomorrow. Some dude, Couch. So the bet for the next 10 games is MSU money line. Just rip it.
So yeah, or roll it up. Yeah, you just keep rolling it over. I mean, you're not going to get great. You're going to pay a lot of juice for some of these games. Like I don't know if the money line is out yet for the Michigan State game tomorrow, but they're 11.5-point favorites. So you're looking at it's a big number. But yeah, I mean, I don't think like if you hold on, give me 1 second.
Off. All right, where's he at?
All right, so here's the schedule. Tell me where they're going to lose. Rutgers at home. Rutgers is a perfect matchup too, other than the Soko or Romier or Clifford, whatever the big guy, not the big red dog, but Clifford, the other guy. And other than him, it's a great matchup because, like Penn State, they're much better than Penn State, but they can't shoot. They're a great defensive team. Those are the teams that aren't going to run away or beat Michigan State at home. Then it's Minnesota at home. Minnesota's not coming to Fresno and winning that game. It's at Maryland. Maryland can't shoot either. Another good matchup. Better team, and that's one where Maryland, Michigan State. I think Kevin Palm has a 4-point win, so you can see a spread around there. I don't think they'll lose any of those 3 games. Wisconsin again, tough game. Then Michigan at home. Look at this Michigan team, not happening. Maryland at Fresno, not happening. Minnesota on the road, really doubt it. Then Illinois at home. Good, interesting game, right? They could lose that game, but Illinois at home, that ought to be really interesting. At Penn State, not losing that game of that matchup. At Michigan, I don't know who Michigan's going to be by then. Iowa at home, not this Iowa team. Ohio State at home, competitive game maybe. Then at Purdue, Northwestern at home. You think they're going to drop the rematch Northwestern after the way they played last time? I doubt it. Then at Indiana, who's okay at home but really flawed. Like just look at these games. And again, if Michigan State's not who I think they can be and are and should be, then they'll lose somewhere along the way on these. But the only games to me that are even toss-ups at this point are toss-ups is Wisconsin on the road, 1, Illinois at home. Give me obviously Purdue on the road, maybe Ohio State in Breslin, but they're they've got a really good stretch ahead of them.
Gavin Haas, which is a better job, Michigan State or Washington?
It's a really good question.
I mean, if we say state, we're being a homer. I don't really know Washington and what they have on campus and all that shit. But
well, they're 2 different types of things. I mean, you're in a pro sports town, but it actually, they've got a lot there though.
And it depends. If you're a coach and you're a West Coast guy, you want the Washington job over Michigan State, right? I mean,
yeah, it was a true football school over basketball there. You're way out west, a little off the radar. Now you're in the same league, so that changes some things. I think there are comparable reasons to argue either one. I don't think it's clear in terms of recruiting base. You're close to California out there. Here you're in the Midwest, Ohio. I don't think either one has a clear line that's better than the other.
Next one from Gavin. What would it take for Tom Izzo to call it quits?
I think it would be a situation where either somehow he didn't have the NIL to compete, or the transfer portal really started becoming everything for his program to the point he hated. And if he'd have to stop having fun. I think he'd be ready to step aside. Right now, I think he enjoys being Tom Izzo, and those parts of the game haven't ruined it yet for him.
Do you think it'll be like Saban, though, where Saban just didn't really announce it or talk about it to his staff and just decided?
I do, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I think there's no way he does
do not do the Coach K tour. Do not. We saw how that ended. I can't handle that.
He's not doing it.
No. Gavin Haas, what's stopping MSU from football from winning 8 games in the Jonathan Smith's first year? Is the Big Ten wide open next season? And from Rich Searing, realistic expectations for football, 6-6?
It's just hard to know because we don't know what the other teams are. They have some tough games on their schedule. They have some winnable games. So we don't know what Aiden Childs will be as a quarterback, right? We don't know how good that offensive line will be. I think the defense has a chance to be okay. But they didn't fire Mel Tucker because he was awful. They fired him because of misconduct.
Well, a little sprinkled, you know.
He wasn't winning.
Right.
But if he had still been the coach, do you think they'd lose? And who knows what else? Yes, I do think there will be. The problem is now there will be nothing until that, but that may be the summer. You know, I mean, it could take a while before that actually happens.
Rich, without Jeremy Fears, we lose something extra. What do you think the ceiling is without him?
They definitely lose a little defensively, the way they can get into people, and just the ability to, you know, I mean, as good as solid a point guard as Trey Holloman is, as good a shooter as he is, and a good player, there's another gear that Fears brings you in, and what he was becoming, certainly. And so I don't know that their ceiling in terms of what they can put together in March or any specific game is different. But I'd say they're one game worse without him. And it's somewhere, and it's just a place you don't know. It's a place that he would have had a really good game somewhere home or on the road where they could use it. And they're one game worse.
Trains and Planes next. Please further explain your comment regarding Hall's body just sometimes not being ready. What in the 9-7 hell does that mean? And why in the 9-7 hell would a coach continue to run him out there?
Because I don't know that the staff always knows that. I don't know that he's not going to know day to day. What he has said to me, and I need to get some clarification about how much that's still happening versus what was happening last year for sure. Some days he would wake up last year, you know, and feel like, oh, okay. And I think some days he wakes up and he just doesn't quite have it. It's almost like an aging NBA player who can still do it twice a week, but not 4 times a week anymore. So that's the issue he's had and to what degree he is. But that's not something you can measure and be sure about. And some days he feels great, and other days he doesn't. I don't think that's why he got 0 rebounds in Northwestern. That's an excuse, but you got to be able to fight through that stuff. But I do know there are days where he feels like he's got great juice, and other days where he doesn't.
Trains and Planes, is Izzo ever going to realize Carr needs to get 15 to 20 minutes a game?
Should have played more than 7 last at Illinois. And MSU, I think, wins if he does. Now, Malik Hall played pretty well too, but that was a team where there were times you could have gone smaller and gone Hall and Carr. I think Carr is most effective right now at power forward. I think that's part of the issue. But you can play him. You can play Hall 25 and Carr 15, and there are things. Yes, Carr is going to give up a bucket here and there when he gets lost, but he's going to make up for it with help defense. He's going to make up for it with something he gives you on the break. And you know who else gives up lots of buckets? Monty Soko, right? Like, and every possession is going to matter. And late in the game, coaches are going to talk about, well, that play we screwed up early was just as important in the game late. Then who you play matters. You can't let your big men give up the points they did early, and you've got to hold Sissoko to a higher standard in terms of the points that he cost them. I think if Monty Sissoko played 7 fewer minutes against Illinois and Cohen Carr played 7 more, I think Michigan State wins that game by 4 or 5 points.
Joe Naughty next. Does NIL transfer portal change college football enough that records set by Saban and others prior to 2022 should not be compared with this new era? It'll never happen though.
Yeah,
people are going to compare it no matter what.
Because you could say, I mean, records in the '80s are running the beard. I don't.
And Saban's a legend, no matter who comes after him and wins more, right? If someone does.
The one thing I think should be looked at, because there are some guys right now breaking scoring records at schools and stuff because they're playing a fifth full year because of COVID. That's the one that I think like that ought to have an asterisk. If you play one more full season than the other person at your school whose record you broke, that should be noted.
Like Detroit Mercy, what's his name, trying to get his son to play in like some random game so we could break Pete Maravich's
He was already
44.2.
like 2 more seasons than Maravich played. Yeah.
I hate that. Kenshu, how many more times could MSU possibly have to play Boob Caw Caw Bowie?
It's a boo, so it's a boo.
Yeah.
They play him once more this season. They could have him play him in the Big Ten tournament. I guess they could play him in the Final Four or something. Could be 3 more times, but it will not.
Is he coming back next year? Does he have an opportunity?
He can't. And you know what? He's not actually been around any longer than Malik Hall. So that's something you have to just.
Yeah, but his name's Boo Bowie.
And he's 24. He's older than the other guys. Yeah. There's 6 24-year-olds in the Big Ten as of this March.
Dang it, Bobby, next. Is MSU basketball capable of overachieving this season? They've arguably only done so once against Baylor.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I don't know if that was an overachievement. That was a game where they finally put one on somebody. But, yeah, I mean, they absolutely did. They played really well for, 5 games in a row. They played pretty well at Illinois. They didn't hit shots. And they just played poorly once. The problem is, and this is what I've kind of written about, is because of what the record is, every loss is compounded by that situation. And so it's frustrating to people. And you can't look at something just based on a given night. But yeah, no, they absolutely are. And maybe we'll see it in Madison.
Next one from Dang It Bobby. Are Velveeta shells and cheese the best mac and cheese product available? Like anywhere? I've had some barbecue joints that are way better than.
Yeah.
But if you're at like a grocery store or.
Like you're looking out of a box, that's a good question. I mean, the problem is I'm usually not sober when I make these decisions on mac and cheese. So the taste, you know how it is when you're stoned or you're drunk and you have mac and cheese, it all tastes.
You put mac and cheese on your sandwich and eat it that way.
Oh my God, that's good. Especially in those situations. I mean, it's
Let's get fat. Screw it.
Groovy Donuts do a mac and cheese donut.
I'm intrigued by your weekend though. The waif out of town.
Yeah,
I wonder what goes down over there.
Savannah, Georgia, with a friend, and it is,
Wait, so it's a vacation?
Yeah, it's just like, she had Monday off, and it was like, we had to use a Delta companion pass by January 30th, and it was like, let's go on a 3-day trip or something. I was like, cool, I watch football. And
did you try to like hold back, like, oh man, it's gonna be oh really? You gotta go? I guess this time you can go, right?
Yeah,
I love being with my wife, but I will say, as a husband, I do get a little excited when she goes out of town. I don't care. I love having my wife there. I like watching the TV with her. We gamble. We do all that shit. I love my wife. I do enjoy deep down when she goes out of town sometimes. I'm always do whatever you want.
Yeah, and the way I know I love her is I'm always excited when she's coming home.
Right.
Not thrilled that I'm picking her up from Metro on Monday night from Detroit Airport. And you know how this
don't ruin it. Just do it.
I'm not going to complain, but this is how it happened. Because they could have driven to Metro. She went with his friend, and her friend's husband just likes doing these trips, so he drove them there. Well, now they could take the flyer. I'm not going to do that. That's the husband. That's the bad husband trip. But like, just because he likes taking you there, does that mean again?
So if he likes it so much, why does he go pick him up?
Well, that's fair, but you can't say.
Why not? You like it so much.
I don't want.
Wait, what is this shit? Like, so he did the first leg, and then you have to do the second leg?
Right. But Elizabeth kind of put it at me like, does my husband not want to pick me up from the airport? The way she phrased it, it sounded so.
No, it's that this guy loves doing it.
Yeah, he enjoys it. He wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't believe him.
I'm a big fan of his, but not in this situation. And I kept looking at MSU schedule. Like, isn't there a women's basketball game or something I got to cover that night? Like, nothing.
By the way, there's construction till like 2025 at Metro now. So.
That'd be fun. Monday night would just be a blast. That is a story almost worth telling, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company, 402 South Washington Avenue in downtown Lansing. If you're looking for a better place to spend Monday night or any night, a cozy January evening and date night, a drink after work. Midtown Brewing Company, fantastic menu. Go to midtownbrewing.net. Also, tell me if you like a stout beer, the American Stout, my absolute favorite. They've got it at Midtown Brewing Company downtown.
And by the way, it's not like I do anything different when she's gone. That's the dumb thing about it. I pretty much do the same thing.
Right, and I couldn't
Smoke weed and gamble.
And the worst part is we have ring doorbells on two of our, cameras on our side door and our front door. So I can't even like sneak like.
Is that food, Graham?
Yeah, right. Yeah. You're certainly not gonna have like.
Do you have the speaker on it so that she could say it through her phone?
Oh yeah, I do that sometimes.
Graham, what's in the bag, Graham?
She hates that. I'll do it live. She'll go check the mail. I'll be in another city. I'll just talk to her through it. Absolutely.
I can imagine that sucks for her. David, what's your next? If MSU is MSU the Ohio State of last season, losing all their games but loved by metrics?
Wait a second.
Yeah, I don't know. I was gonna move on, but I figured you'd say you skipped one.
Did we skip a few?
I don't know. I have dang it, Bobby Velveeta shells.
We're good. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I lost my place. I got nervous and I was talking about my wife and I was just scrolling up and down and I lost my place.
Understandable.
I mean, they are loved by the metrics. Oh, I got a book on that here. My mustache flannel. Yes, in the sense they're better than Ohio State last year because they're a better constructed roster and all that stuff. But Ohio State did have that going for a while. I think they're a better team than that. I think a lot of it's been situational. They underachieved early and they're paying for that a little bit right now. But they are loved by the metrics. It's better than the alternative. It's better than being like 14-2 and being like, why does Ken Palm have you at 46? Shit. And then you got a long way. Then you really can't drop the games.
Preston Zantello next. Which arena has a better atmosphere, Munn or Lawson?
It's been a long time since I covered a game in Lawson, and so I don't know recently. And they were bad for 10 years.
I know where Lawson is, but tell the people where it's.
Sorry, Lawson's Western Michigan University.
Oh, right, yes.
Lawson Lunatics. Their student section there is crazy. I'll say that. They've had some major issues there with profanity. There was also some bags of coins at some point. There have been issues at Lawson with the students and
bags of coins. They throw them on the ice.
I remember the story from a decade ago, but I do know that like families stopped going to Lawson. It became an issue. Like the students, they have 1,000 students there, and like 3 other people. Everybody else be at the Kalamazoo Wings game because you really couldn't. You didn't want your 8-year-old to hear the language that was coming out of their mouths. But I think Munn is still pretty incredible in his rock.
Professor, next. Officiating bad at pro levels, even worse at college level, putrid at high school ranks, and so on. We are all to blame for it, but what is a way to fix it?
It's hard. You got to get good people wanting to do it.
Is there like a referee union or something? Like, do they need a union? I just feel like they're not paid enough or something.
They aren't paid very well.
I mean, the NFL guys, that's insanity what they're paid.
Right.
They should be paid way more.
Yeah, that's the problem. You're not paid a lot, so you got to do it because you like it. And then when people are just shitting on you all the time.
But you've told me what Big Ten referees make. I mean,
those
it's
guys
good coin, though, right?
They do well. They do better than like MLS. But if you're like a high school rep,
oh, screw
that
it.
Sucks.
Oh, and you have to get yelled at by parents for what? $100?
Yeah, I think we've
got
got to make it better for those.
I can't believe anyone refs high school or like young kid stuff. I can't believe anybody wants to go do that.
I've done it. And some of it I've enjoyed, but I enjoy being combative. I enjoy fighting with parents.
Oh, there you go.
And so the problem with reffing, like I enjoyed 14 under like girls softball.
Interesting. Did you? I have to fucking fix that in post, really.
Oh my god!
Like an Epstein Island over here.
Oh my god! No, that is. First of all, as somebody who's also coached girls versus boys at times, they listen. They listen better, right? And at that age, it's fine. The problem with like softball, it's easy. It's a sport where there's like a break between each play. Basketball, I ref like 7th and 8th grade boys and girls basketball. You can call travel and carry and offensive foul on every single play. And so you have to, but that would take forever. So you have to kind of pick and choose. And sometimes talk to the kid and be like, hey, what you're doing here is, I'm not calling it right now. But then the coach starts yelling at you.
Kid's like, fuck you, ref.
Well, then, you get parents saying, this fucking kid's talking. You're like, well, look, you want me to, okay, we'll be here till noon. Let's just do that. All right.
Professor, next. Officiating bad at pro levels, even fuck, I read that. C-dubs, how is your ideal basketball game officiated? Let them play, actually call fouls when they happen, or somewhere in between?
if you go back and watch the 2012 Big Ten tournament championship game between Michigan State and Ohio State, this is the Draymond Green team. That's it. That game. Physical, up and down, let them play, wasn't ruined by the physicality, wasn't ruined by the whistle. That to me has always stood out as a game that is how the sport ought to be played. And, you know, it's just, you got to let them play. You can't let it ruin it. You can't let it, you know, you can't let things get so physical that you know, you got to call fouls that are fouls. You got to be consistent with it. But ultimately, let them play a little bit. Strength ought to be just as important part of the game as speed.
C-Dubs, why are MSU basketball fans delusional when this team loses but plays well? Because they want to win one of those games sometimes when you're in it, you know, on the road. Fans want to win it one time.
And people struggle with the road home split, just how in college sports, college basketball especially, how hard it is to win on the road. But yeah, if you lose, again, you lose by 3. Vegas gives you 3 or 4 just for being on the road. It should be more than that in college basketball. That team wasn't better than you. They were just home. Now it's frustrating because ultimately you got to win those games. At some point, those games matter in the Big Ten standings. But I also think MSU fans are partly, and I think every fan base is probably like to some degree, but MSU fans come off football season and they care about football and they're wired to react to every game as if it's life or death. And it can't be basketball. But this has also been a frustrating year, so that's why you're here.
Steve, up next. What's the coldest game you've ever attended? I don't know.
You have one you can think of?
Penn State a couple years ago. Wasn't that really cold? It was raining really hard. I honestly, if it's going to be cold, like Kansas City, this game tonight, there's no chance.
No, you don't want that.
There's no chance I would ever go to that game. Like the Lions, if they played an outdoor stadium and it was supposed to be 30 below tomorrow, no offense, I'm just going to watch it at home.
Yeah, I've 2, but I've watched both in the press box, so I'm not.
That doesn't count.
Well,
It's
yeah.
warm up there.
So I took.
They have food.
I went to Green Bay to cover the NFC Championship against the Giants, do a piece on Greg Jennings, and I still remember the walk from where I had parked. It was like a mile, and it was. I was like, oh God, thank God I'm not in the stands today. This is awful. But the other one was at Northwestern in 2013. The game, I think Michigan State made it clinch the Big Ten East Division that day, and I thought it was going to be fun. Like I had these memories of me and my dad at Spartan Stadium at like 8, 15, 16, where everybody's in winter coats with hot cocoa and the snowflakes are coming down, and it's just kind of fun and cozy and it's cold, but it's not awful. The problem is those games are like 30 degrees, and 30 degrees isn't fun. But if you're all bundled up and you're into it, it's not that bad. There's a big difference between 30 degrees and 10. And 10 and windy in Evanston and Northwestern when there's nothing stopping the wind and there aren't that many fans around you. So when I told my wife and her friend that they should go to this, who lived in Chicago at the time, and you know what, I'll get you tickets, let's go to the Northwestern Michigan State game. It might be a little cold, but you get some hot cocoa. As soon as we got out of the car, I was like, oh, this is not going to go well. And we bought a hat off a homeless guy for my wife. And then they
Wait. You bought a hat?
He was selling them in a cart.
Oh,
I didn't take it.
I thought you just said, hey man, how much for the hat? Hey, homeless guy.
She never really forgave me. I don't know if she's been to a game since, maybe once, but.
By the way, homeless guy selling hats and you stop? That's where you get the hat from.
We were walking, it was like, I think he knew his client, like people were starting to figure out, holy shit, this is cold. He knew he had a clientele out there. And I went up to the press box and said goodbye, and they went and lasted a quarter and a half, and went to a bar or something, because there was just no way, Anyway, that is a story not worth telling, but I told it anyway, presented by our friends at Midtown Brewing Company in downtown Lansing. Go to midtownbrewing.com to check out midtownbrewing.net to check out their menu and all their offerings. We're just come by.
G.E. Miller up next. What do you think the primary reasons are for the NCAA becoming a completely toothless organization from a rules creation and enforcement standpoint? In 3 years, they have shifted to cheating is fine, instant transfers, and unlimited pay for play meddling.
I think part of it is because they're scared of lawsuits and they've lost everyone. But I also think they have gotten toothless. I think they should speak up, even if they're, the problem is forever, they had sort of this industry that was, where they got to play the hand of God, and it was too hard-handed that way, and too heavy-handed. And so I think this is just a reaction, and they're losing the courts, and they're just nervous they're going to lose everything. But they should speak up when they think things aren't good for kids or aren't right. People don't want to hear from them. That's part of the problem. I think that's a big issue. You are, however, seeing occasional moments, and I think Jim Harbaugh is one of them, where they say this, you can't lie to us. Look what happened at Florida State, where you see their offensive coordinator get suspended and have a show cause penalty for an NIL violation. So there are moments you see it, but you're right, nobody's afraid of them right now.
John, up next, the advantage that Alabama had over other programs was Saban is taking over at Alabama a no-win situation because of expectations. How long does DeBoer stay at Alabama, and does he leave for the NFL? Guy just got the gig. We're talking about NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I do think he'd be a good NFL coach, and I don't know. I don't think he's young enough that he still has a move in him, I think. So I don't know. It depends how it goes. I don't think it's a no-win. I think for a lot of, it's not a great situation to replace a legend. You kind of want to replace the guy who replaces the guy, right? That's the way you want to do it. But I also think really good coaches win. And the question is, will you win enough to make people happy enough that they won't run you out of town? DeBoer is legitimately a good coach, though. And you're not always going to have Saban. I think this was a pretty good hire. If it doesn't work there, I think partly it's just almost impossible to do what Saban did. I also think the other thing that's about to happen, which sucks for DeBoer, and it sucks for a lot of these, like Saban wasn't around that long in the NIL era, the transfer portal era. He was around a little bit. But you're seeing a little bit more parity because people want to go places where they can get paid. Certain places, quarterbacks are sticking around and going for 1 year here and there. There's more talent actually spread out, and that's the only benefit of this in terms of the long-term. I still think college sports are in trouble because it's hard to build things, places. People will stop giving a shit about recruiting. There are programs, smaller programs are just going to lose interest over time. I don't think it's good, but I do think that, there is a chance for places like Michigan State. For a while, it's not bad.
JD up next. Why hasn't anyone asked Izzo why he doesn't wear a suit anymore?
He has been asked. He's talked about this, right? I mean, basically after COVID, very few coaches do. They all sort of they stopped doing it for COVID and basically decided this is something they like to actually be more comfortable during games. I think they look better wearing suits. I think they look more official. I think it was a better look. But you're seeing it pretty much throughout college basketball.
Next one from JD. Has the national media turned on the Lions? Seems like none of the experts think we are going to beat the Rams. Were we just a cute storyline that's now in the way with it being a playoff time? Jeez, I can't read.
No, I know. The Rams are a popular pick, but I think there's good reason for it, right? I mean, they're good teams.
If you're talking about gambling on it, yes, I can see where Rex Ryan said the Lions were going to win. So I don't know.
And here's the thing.
National media.
Nobody knows anything. I listened for the last week to everybody telling me the Cleveland Browns were the dark horse to get to the Super Bowl, and their defense was going to.
I love that defense.
Yeah.
You got to love that Cleveland defense and Joe Flacco's storyline.
What did they give up, 45 today? Something like that?
That was Flacco. It wasn't really the deal.
Yeah.
Beppe Plum next. Sharknado, but as a Michigan Blizzard. Blizzark, maybe. How would you survive?
So just constant worst blizzard ever? Is that what we're talking about, how we survive?
Yeah.
I mean, I just huddle at home. I like it. I mean, I live a mile from the studio.
Apparently Graham does whatever he wants, no matter what the weather.
Don't give a shit.
He goes out, doesn't give a fuck.
I would sweat around the neighborhood. I would snowblow for people. I like that. I do have a nice snowblower, and I like that. But yeah, I actually wouldn't hate it. I would have enough soup, some flip tea soup. Maybe I'd take a. It's the beauty when you live where I live. I'm not far from downtown, like a mile, and nobody's on the road. You can still get the place. I can get to Midtown Brewing Company, in 5-10 minutes, and enjoy a nice meal, and even in a blizzard, I'm not worried about it.
Next one from Beppe. Would you, for any amount of money, leave Seattle for Alabama? It's not even on the beach, Alabama. Seattle is a top 5 city in the country. The South has. Well, Atlanta is meh, at least.
Would you leave Seattle for Alabama?
Yes. For how much money, though?
Yeah. I mean,
seriously, if Washington wanted to match it, I don't know if I would want to handle the Alabama pressure. Because if DeBoer loses 2-3 games next year, everybody's going to start panicking, right?
that tells you he's a confident coach that he thinks he can lose. Because you're right.
Or there's too much money to say no to.
Washington was going to find him. I think it is. I do think college towns, in places like Alabama, where you are the Lord of all creation, there is something to it. And whereas in Seattle, you are just you're a so celebrity in town. So there are advantages to being in a place like Tuscaloosa. Now, I can't handle the heat. I prefer being someplace where,
tornadoes.
8 months out of the year, I can have a muskox flannel on without back sweat and body odor.
I mean, I definitely would pick Seattle over Alabama, but if it's like, you can't say no to that kind of money, I would do it.
And I like mid-sized towns. If Alabama was a little further north, I might choose Tuscaloosa.
Jake Hawkins up next. Since you travel and drive a lot for MSU road games, do you have the required items for the winter in case you break down and end up in the ditch? Blanket, jumper cables, flashlight, etc. It's a good question.
It is. I have a AAA card, which is important.
Yeah, but you can't put that on you to
No, I
keep
do.
warm.
Yeah, I usually have like an extra coat, hat, gloves. Not always jumper cables. I use the AAA card, but I have most of those things. Yeah, extra boots, things like that, just in case.
You have extra boots?
Well, I'm usually not wearing. I usually have a pair of boots, I should say.
In the car, right now?
Not in the car, but they were in my rental car when I went to Illinois. Because it took me on the way back from Illinois, trying to avoid the Mattawan area and that whole I-94 between Benton Harbor and Kalamazoo stretch. I came over to Indianapolis and went north, but from last night from Fort Wayne to Lansing took like 3.5 hours. It was nasty. I mean, there's all sorts of people off the roads and the ice, and it was nasty.
Next one from the Hawk. Are you...
You okay?
Yeah, sorry. Are you not allowed to call out the officiating in your columns, even when it affects games like it did on Thursday?
I'm allowed to do whatever I want in my columns.
Wow, look at Couch. He can do whatever the fuck he wants anywhere.
I mean, Jesus, I fix this whole show and post it. What I meant is,
Oh, man.
it's just a bad look to, when you're covering a team, to blame officiating for defeats. Especially if you don't think that's why. I mean, I didn't look at that game and think officiating is what cost the game. I think there were a number of things that cost the game, and officiating, there might have been
But they're still ass, though. I mean, you can.
Yeah, I
I'm not
mean,
going to blame a game on it,
and the
but
free throws weren't even, but some of that was style of play and all that. I'm not afraid to do that. I think it's more effective after a victory. Like, I think the best way to do it is if Michigan State, you're covering Michigan State, or whoever team you're covering wins by 5, and there was horrendous officiating, and you take that moment to point out, because you don't look like it's some sort of Homer sour grapes at that point. But if it really is what I think cost him the game, I would absolutely say.
next one from Jake. Since Alan Haller has done an amazing job with the athletic coaching hires, do you think he'll be around to hire Tom Izzo's replacement?
I don't know. Depends how long Izzo goes and how long Haller goes, and Haller's in a position where you got a new president coming in. You hope that relationship is good. You hope donors don't push him out, and I think he's done some really good things. I think they're a little behind on some of the NIL collective stuff, but there's some movement there on some new things that I hope to write about shortly here. We'll see. But overall, I would say he's done a really good job, and there's evidence based on the hires that he's made thus far, including the early returns on Jonathan Smith, and certainly in women's basketball and volleyball and hockey especially, that you want him to be involved in. Like, it seems to be a strength of his. And so if you're making what, other than the football coaches, and given who Izzo's been to Michigan State, maybe the most important hire in 25 years in that university, it's athletic department, I think you want Alan Haller to be part of that.
And lastly, Hans Jurgent. Should you not have sex the night before a football game so you're pent up and angry? Shouldn't you get down before a basketball game so you're confident and silky smooth?
So the worst thing is here that Hans had another one too, which I'm going to find, because I just end up, somehow I copy and pasted it twice, and he has the same question next, and I screwed that up.
Do you need Hoff or?
Give me some Hoff for 1 second. All right. So the answer is, should you not have sex the night before football game? That's a Hans question. It's a good question. I don't have an answer for it. Have you ever, because you had something athletic to do, turned down sex, Jason?
I never turned down sex in the history of my life, ever.
Right.
If a woman wants to have sex with me willingly, I was like, yeah, before any game or whatever.
I
mean, why not?
When you look a certain way, I mean, this is before we discovered our muskox flannels and became much more attractive, but it was, yeah. So anyway, the final question from Hans. Should Michigan State run some plays for Cohen Carr? Doesn't Izzo have an obligation to develop him and not relegate him to a dunking master freak show? I don't think he's ready to have a lot of stuff run for him. Here and there, maybe, and you want like baseline backdoor cuts, those sort of things, yes. And we've seen a couple shots here and there he's hit, but you just need him on the floor, because he's right now, and I don't want to say a garbage player is a bad thing, but a garbage player, the type of guy who makes plays around the rim, cleans up other people's messes. You want him on, he doesn't need plays run for him, but I do think he needs minutes. And so that would be my answer to that question. We appreciate all of you. Thanks for producing our show. Thanks for hanging with us until Saturday night, and hopefully many of you get to listen to this before the Rutgers game, and if not, it'll still be good. This will be our last show for a week. Jason is going to Mexico after the Lions game.
Yeah.
And just in case he does something legal at Ford Field, he has booked a trip out of the country, and we will be back after the Lions' divisional playoff round win to break it down a week from now. We appreciate Groovy Donuts. Open 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sunday. Great opportunity to swing by Groovy Donuts, Lake Lansing Road, East Lansing, or in Williamson. We appreciate Firekeeper's Eye Casino and Sportsbook. Download the app today, bet the games, and of course, our friends at Midtown Brewing Company. Good job, man. Have a good week.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Press through.